Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with Annabella Miller and 4 of our 5 interns here in Santa Fe, New Mexico at the offices of RiverSource. And we're super honored that you joined us. I want to make a quick introduction before we get into these awesome presentations. I want to acknowledge the longstanding support of the New Mexico Youth Conservation Corps, which has provided funding for the crew wages, also a number of other costs, and just the long-standing support they provided. Also want to acknowledge the U.S. Forest Service, which through the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon recovery funding has been able to get our interns out monitoring seedling survival and also planting trees. I also want to acknowledge we've been getting funding support from the REI Cooperative Action Fund, and also just from, I want to acknowledge our interns. I'm really proud of the work they've done on a variety of things, from tree planting to seedling survival monitoring to soil erosion control, to doing work with educational programming in Las Vegas, in the Jemez Pueblo area. They've also done some work in the Santa Fe area. So just really honored and want to say thank you to the 4 interns that are here in Santa Fe, and also with Elijah Garcia, who's going to be joining us from Penasco. So now I just want to ask Annabella, if you want to say a little bit about the project.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm mostly working on projects in the Las Vegas Mora area, and I've been really having a great time with the interns I've gotten to work with. I've gotten to work with everybody, but primarily Rachel and Catalina, who will be presenting today. And it's really awesome to get to work with these interns that are really inspired to do the work that is going to hopefully help our landscapes and our community in the future. And they've been really great to work with and inspiring. So yeah, I'm really glad that we have you all here today, and glad to see the presentation of what they've been doing, and it's nice to get to celebrate that. So yeah.
Yay. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to get some of the presentations queued up so you can see what they've learned, and also so you'll hear their voices. We might ask them just to turn on the camera really quickly so you can see what they look like too. And we're going to start with Rachel Ortega. She's going to be followed by Catalina Gomez, and then Tian Sandoval will present, and then we'll have Lacia Fiuti coming at the end of the presentations here in Santa Fe, and then at 4 o'clock, after he finishes his finals, Elijah Garcia is going to be joining us from up in Penasco. We're going to go ahead and share the screen.
All right, well, hi guys. My name is Rachel, and I'm an intern based out of Las Vegas. I'm from Las Vegas. I've lived there for most of my life, and I've gone back and forth to Taos over the years. And I've always been raised around nature, and just being around such beautiful places has definitely sparked my interest for appreciating nature and our environment, especially here in New Mexico. But, you know, as the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire did, you know, a lot of damage in 2022, it has turned my perspective to the health of our forests, and not just recreational use and activities. It was a devastating feeling to witness the damage done, especially on my community. And I think that's the reason why I finally decided to put in the work for our forests, and it's really just been my motivation to be a steward to our land. It has piqued my curiosity towards fire science, natural resources, and land management. And I think that's why this internship has been an important opportunity to me. And throughout the internship, we've prioritized recognizing reforestation significance, where our intern crew based out of Vegas, we do a lot of monitoring the density and survival of seedlings that were planted in the burn scar. And, I've learned how it can be important for future land managers, foresters, and researchers know a little bit more about the progress of the tree growth and the burn scars. And it's just really important to care for our surrounding forests in general. And we should, not only support the land specifically, but also for future generations, because everyone that comes after us are the people who will care for our forests. We won't always be here. And I think that's why it was also beneficial for us to monitor in not only Coupling, but also the Jemez Bandelier area. We saw different versions of reforestations and the aftermath and just different conditions. And we gained multiple perspectives and ideas on how to work towards achieving a healthy ponderosa pine forest. And that's where I think density, the survival and density specifically comes into play. So digging a little deeper into that, that's where we get into the density monitoring steps. Beginning, the prescription for the seedlings planted was between 2 and 9 trees in an 11-foot, 3-inch plot. And where we start is by finding a nucleation site, a specific location within the disturbed area where the trees are planted by crews. And then once you're there in the nucleation site, the first task is to find the plot center. And then you cast out to 3 random points surrounding the PC, the plot center, within the nucleation site. And in each plot, observations take place where we count every seedling alive or dead. And then all the data that we collect is in Survey 123, and right here in this map, it shows the Coupling area, and each point right here are the plots where we monitored. So I'll click here. Oh, and it'll show you the details of each plot, and if the density fit the prescription, and just stuff for us to look back on in the future for further improvement. And there should be pictures right there, but I don't know why they're not.
Try clicking on one and just see what happens.
I don't know.
Might
Oops.
be a different point.
Okay, well, I guess that's probably not gonna work. But yeah, and also the red, yellow and green in the background shows the soil burn severity, so you can definitely see where we prioritized doing the seedling monitoring. Challenges and triumphs. Being an intern with RiverSource has definitely had so many ups and downs, mostly ups. But I would say that, one of the biggest challenges was when we were monitoring in Jemez and we could not find any seedlings whatsoever. It was such bad weather, super cold, and there was it started snowing on us, and we were like trudging through the locusts, which was an interesting experience. But I would say the triumph part of that also would be when we finally found the trees. And I think it's just the most gratifying feeling when you realize that the work that you're doing, pays off in a way. And so right here you can see this was where we were doing the monitoring Jemez. You can see the surrounding locusts, and that was the first place that we worked. We worked in multiple locations beginning with the Hemis Bandelier area, and then later on we moved forward with the density monitoring and tree planting in Kapolin. And we would also cage the seedlings and just, make sure that they're planted correctly. And there's me, thumbs up. Later on, we went to Ivilong mid-October, and that's in the Gainas Canyon area for a Robertson High School field trip, and we just did our best to educate MESA students on macroinvertebrates, riparian areas, and water content. And I think that was a really meaningful experience to share what we know with the youth. And occasionally we would also work with the Las Vegas Forest Service office, every once in a while doing a little bit of file work, paperwork, but we also got to do some range monitoring near Elk Mountain. And let me just tell you, it was a really beautiful place. And there I am. Las Vegas office days. On the days that we needed to work in person on our reports, we worked at Annabella's home office, and nearby canines acted as moral support. And on remote days, we got to dig deeper, a little behind the scenes, analyzing data at home, and then on snow days where we would attempt to go out and scout if we could find any trees at all. We did our best to get up the mountain, but when we realized the snow was too deep, so we built a snowman during lunch. And so yeah, I think that all of these experiences add up to what I can take with me to the future. Any potential future jobs that I might have. I think it was more meaningful when I got to realize the significance of monitoring trees specifically. I also never knew the importance of recognizing the state of our water, soil, and how in 15 years our ecosystem can look completely different than how it is right now. And it's nice to know that, the work we do can benefit the future of watersheds, forest, and wildlife. And it's also played a big part in me working in a professional realm. It's definitely helped me dig deeper into the natural resource career path, and I think I've definitely widened my scope of where this experience can lead me to, career speaking. I would like to also, stay in the steward realm, like forest steward realm, where I might possibly get into fire science, a fire crew, or even take the knowledge that I have now to the Park Service. And so yeah, and I think that's just all about me. And I would also give a last but special thanks to RiverSource for this opportunity, to the Las Vegas Forest Service office for letting us work with you guys, the Nature Conservancy, and the YCC for this opportunity. Thank you so much.
So I don't know if they actually got to see your face for a minute.
Oh, did they not?
Yeah. So hello.
Okay. Yes. Hi, I'm Rachel. I just gave the presentation. Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Catalina Gomez. Come on up, Kat. You can say hi, and then we'll get this. You can say hello.
Hi. All right, let's get this started. Everybody that. How do I?
Let's see. You can use this mouse, right?
Oh, okay. That works better. Fall 2024 internship. Introduction, me. Hi, my name is Catalina Gomez. I am from the Las Vegas area. In my spare time, I like horseback riding, fishing, embroidering, stargazing, and just being outside in nature. I live and work on a ranch. I'm very involved with the animals and the land. and I believe that is the reason I am interested in resource management. I joined this program to further expand my knowledge of the forest and rivers surrounding my community. I have previously worked for the Forest Stewards Youth Guild for 3 summers since 2021, excluding the summer of the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire. My history with the land. Living on this land my whole life, and for past generations, we have depended on the trees in our area for a living. When the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire burned, over 95% of our land and trees were burnt. I've heard stories of past generations of family who used to log and take the lumber to Las Vegas with a horse-drawn carriage. When my family was struggling, we would go out and harvest lumber. We would also harvest the moss rock for landscaping. The land has been managed here by farmers and with cattle, goats, and sheep. My grandfather is a cattle permittee, so in the summer we gather and take cattle up to the wilderness to graze. In the fall, we gather the cattle out of the wilderness and bring them home for the winter through the spring. Many of the farmers and ranchers in our area do the same with their cattle. There are allotments the cattle are allowed, and there are limits to keep from overgrazing the land. This is the way of living and a generational practice for many people, not just my family. That is why it is important to have a good management practices in place to sustain the land for future generations. During this internship, I learned how to monitor the survival of trees and monitor rangeland, which will help me better manage my land. Here is a map of the coupling area. Each point is a nucleation site, and I actually live just right here in this area. You can see where it burnt our place and how close I am to the wilderness we were working in. Survival. The aspect of reforestation I chose to present on is survival monitoring. Survival monitoring is important to ensure that the life of the forest, animals, and people that live there can thrive. Survival monitoring proceeded after density monitoring. The steps were: each nucleation site was visited and PC was found. A 37-foot, 3-inch plot radius was measured out from PC. Depending on the size of the nucleation site, we sometimes needed to create more than one plot. All trees that were found in the plot were monitored for survival, health, and surrounding vegetation. Stem diameter and height were taken for each surviving tree as well. We were surveying for 20% of the trees planted at each nucleation site. So far, we have collected data from 103 surviving trees, 44 were taken in October and 59 were taken in November. There are only 2 nucleation sites that have been monitored thus far. Nucleation site CMC had 68 data points and nucleation site CME had 35 points taken for survival. This data is still being collected and is only 10% complete. The survival of these trees will depend on soil quality, azimuth, wind, shelter, and nurse plants. Additional projects. We worked in the Capulin Mesa where we did density and survival monitoring. We worked up in Jemez where we did survival monitoring. EV Long was a Robertson field trip for water quality. Elk Mountain we did with the Forest Service in Las Vegas, range monitoring. And then office days were done at Annabella's. Here is a photo of a nucleation site up in Capulin. Here is when it snowed up in Capulin and we weren't able to get up. 2 feet of snow, that's quite a bit. The best and worst experiences. The most challenging thing I experienced during this internship were the early and long days in Jemez. The views were great, but walking through the locust was such a struggle. The heat was tiring and getting back home at late hours made it hard to keep morale up. When we didn't find any trees, it seemed like we couldn't make any progress. In some locations, we didn't know if there were any trees planted there or not. We just looked hoping to find something, but this is part of the reason we do this work. It is so that we can learn what works best for trees to grow. The best experience was when we finally found trees in Jemez. There wasn't just one surviving tree, there was many. It made me happy to finally be able to collect data on the surviving trees that were planted some years ago. It was a spot that wasn't overrun with locusts and it was a nice cold day. What I've learned so far, I have learned how to monitor tree survival and density, what to look for in the health of trees, which surrounding plants are good for seedlings, and whether the tree is located on a east, north, west, or south facing slope. These things point to a similar fact that there are many parts that contribute to the survival of these trees. Here is a natural regrowth seedling we found. Real cute, with a little hat on it. Next step. I believe that the things I learned during this internship will assist me in the future to better my land management practices. I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity given to me to work and learn more about this beautiful land we live on.
All right, so next up we have Tian Sandoval, who's gotten really fascinated about some of this natural resource stuff, particularly as it relates to tech and how we can, so you want to say hi real quick?
Hi, it's my dad.
Oh, all right.
All right. So, hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Tian Sandoval. I'm from the Pueblo of San Felipe and the Zuni tribe. I have been interning with RiverSource seasonally since I graduated high school in 2022. So, but this year I got the opportunity to work with them for this fall. So I'm going to be presenting drone technology and natural resources. So during this fall, RiverSource got the opportunity to work with multiple different schools like the Santa Fe Indian School, Wolatoa High School, and NACA. So during these workshops, RiverSource staff, interns, collaborators, and partners would host small stations, and each of these stations were led by the interns or staff. And one of these stations was drones. So drone technology is one of the stations that primarily goes over the operation of the drones, particularly the guidelines, the uses, and the legal uses, of course. So we aim to educate the youth on the bridge of technology into the workforce, so particularly in outdoor conservation and monitoring. So some of the goals that surround education of drone technology would be generally from the lack of information that we don't have right now. So what drone technology can do is it can provide new up-to-date imagery that otherwise wouldn't be available through Google Maps, etc. So another usage for this would it gives homeowners, landowners, the ability to visualize what they otherwise couldn't see on the ground. So this helps propose new opportunities for revegetation, monitoring, or erosion control. So this has been an ongoing mission for RiverSource, because essentially it's important to adapt to new technology because it does help improve the efficiency of the work and accessibility for new information. But some of this work, some of the drone work in particularly, it needs some parameters to go along with. You can fly recreationally, but you do need a license. And you can fly educationally and use it for commercial use. But another thing that we wanted to focus on was educating the youth about the potential for employment from the drone software and how it can help guide the next generation of some tech-friendly stewards. So we started off at the Santa Fe Indian School. Here's an image of me presenting how to program one of these drones. So before we started at the Indian School, we had a task beforehand to learn how to program these drones. So these drones are newer drones that Santa Fe Indian School and RiverSource had got. So it was a learning process between both partners, and it became a real success. We created the flight plan on a manual, and we presented that on the 2nd of this month. Another thing too is before we dove into programming and flying outside, we gave a presentation about the guidelines and sort of the rules and regulations of the drone, like the airspace restrictions, how to control the drones, and also sort of its safety features that it has just in case anything happens. So here's an image after the presentation. After that presentation was over, we got up and started looking at some of the drones here. This dark gray one is one of the older ones. It's still very good. It's still used a lot more. And these are the smaller ones. These small gray ones are the ones that we were programming. And on the right is me and the student. During this time, we were going over how to program a pre-planned flight. And so we're all here guiding them on how to do it themselves. And we also did a pre-flight check, checking the wings, rotors, the gimbals. So after that was done, we went outside. So we went outside to the back, and we began our flights. And we also directed the students to think about some of the areas that we wanted them to focus on, like areas that needed attention, areas that had erosion, areas of focus. So some of the students chose other areas, but we had some students pick the outdoor greenhouse. So while we did that, we programmed a flight over the outdoor greenhouse. And this is what a planned flight looks like. This is the interface of it. So this pink line is the border of the imagery. So this yellow line indicates the flight path of the drone, and these white dots are where there will be a photo point taken and used for reference. This will all tie together in the end. So if when it starts, it'll shoot, go here, shoot, go here, etc., etc. And then the pink line is just essentially how much ground it'll cover from the picture. And the result is an orthophoto. So after we completed our missions, we went back inside because it was getting kind of chilly, and then we uploaded the data. So this is the result. It looks very similar to the other photo with the flight pan. So it was flying in a grid-like pattern, taking images. It is an interactable map, but this is a screenshot because the file is super huge, very humongous. So what we get from this is a detailed map. There's multiple layers that come from an orthophoto. One of them is a digital elevation model. This is a digital elevation model, and this captures the high and low points. The high points being the reddish, warmer colors, and then the darker colors being the lowest points. And here in the greenish kind of yellow areas, kind of a little moderate flat areas. And so we have an example of a normalized difference vegetation index, which we got from Walatoa, which I'll be going over in a second. But another thing that these drones can provide is a 3D perspective, which is also in the next Walatoa slide. So what this can be used for is it can be used to design drainage areas. It can be used to design roads, and it can also be used to identify flat areas. So right here in this, let me zoom in a little bit more. Here in this area is this is where their outdoor garden is at. So that's a good spot for it. Moving on. And here is a YouTube video. This was actually programmed by the students at the Indian school. When we went outside, we created our flight plan. They programmed the drone to fly around the outdoor greenhouse. And they also added a point of interest, which is sort of directing the drone right now to focus on the greenhouse. So somewhere in that square plot, they put a point, and the drone is essentially just focusing on the point and hovering over it, which helps make these nice smooth videos. So I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. So that's what we did at the Indian school. So this was a two-part day. First day was collecting. The next day we also collected with another class, and then we sort of unloaded our data. And after that we reviewed it, and we saw all the new information, and we were sort of astounded by the new information that we got from the drone, because it offered multiple different perspectives that we really didn't think about. So after that we saw some enthusiasm from some of the students, and so we were pretty pleased with that. So moving on, Survey 123, like Rachel mentioned, we do use Survey 123. Survey 123 is a third-party app. It's used to survey data and collect information. So on this app, RiverSource can create surveys that are more catered to like a specific area and what kind of information that's being looked for. For example, if we were down in by the river, we would create a survey to find non-native species, erosion, etc. And if we were like in a hilly area, we could mark areas of erosion, we can take pictures, and with each of these plots, there is a data point that collects the GPS location. So through the software, RiverSource can create detailed graphs and stories, and it can help the students gain a better understanding, and it also sort of grabs their attention because it allows the students to see in a much more different type of thinking, because when these drones are when these surveys are being used, the students often kind of focus on a different type of area rather than what's actually there. Okay, so Walatoa High School, in Hamus, it was also a two-part field day. First day we went outside, collected data. We went down to the riparian area just down here, and we also did some more data collection. But here is an image of the campus, and along with that are some surveys that we collected. So what we noticed from this is two main features that really sparked our concern. Here we have this head cut coming from the parking lot right here, from the stormwater draining into this area. And there's also a much more detailed photo in the next few slides that highlights some of the erosion around the buildings. So RiverSource put together a presentation on geographical mapping, which provided information on laser leveling, drones, GIS, and survey data. So after these presentations, along with the safety and precautions of the drone, of course, we went outside. It was also a nice warm day to go outside as well. So we flew our drones. We took some drone pad flights, and what we noticed is here in this photo. This is the corner of one of their main office buildings, and here where the aluminum kind of meets the wood porch right here is where there was a huge kind of 2-foot undercut of erosion right there. So we took that into consideration and we put that into our report as well. So after our drone flights and data collection, we put together this orthophoto, which highlights the digital elevation models and the normalized difference vegetation index. Sorry. So what we learned from this is that much of the erosion that's happening around the campus is runoff water from the parking lots and sort of just from the stormwater drainage from the rooftops. Here in this image is this is a digital elevation model. Right here, this is the head cut I was talking about. This is sort of going towards the parking lot, and that can raise some huge concerns in the future. But other than that, this is a NDVI. So what this is it highlights the hot and low, the warm areas and the cooler areas. The warmer areas being warm due to hotter soils and less vegetation, and the darker areas, the greenish area, indicates cooler soils and vegetation. But keep in mind, this is also taken on a hill slope, which did have some shade. In these areas, it did have some shade, so that can be reviewed further just to make sure. So that was some of our findings at Walatoa. And with that, we we learned what our next steps could be taken. And the final day we arrived, we spread seed and soil in some of these areas that we thought could use some vegetation. So in conclusion, the information collected throughout the internship only leaves us with more questions than answers. The data gathered helped us visualize these complex issues into more bite-sized pieces, and these two aspects help bridge the connection between the outdoor science and technology. And these findings can help plan some future management practices or some sort of goals that can help prevent further soil erosion. And for example, we can take this information and look at how it can potentially damage the infrastructure in the future. So with that being said, thank you, and yes.
Up next, we have Lascia Fiuti. She's new to RiverSource, and excited to see she was focusing on the outdoor classroom work that we did with some schools.
All right, yeah, so my name is Lascia Fiuti. This is my first time working with RiverSource, even though I actually went on a field trip with Rich when I was in 7th grade, so it's pretty cool that I looped all the way back around and ended up working with him. It's been really amazing. I'm from Madrid, New Mexico, a small town between Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and I just graduated from UNM in the spring with a degree in geography. Since then, I've been trying to get as much experience as I can in the world of ecological restoration. So working with RiverSource through the YCC has been an amazing opportunity. So RiverSource works with schools all across northern New Mexico to get kids engaged with their local environments through data collection and analysis, and we do this in all kinds of ways. But yeah, I chose to focus on our outdoor classroom where we go to different schools and work with the kids to get them outside and interested in restorative work. So we do a couple, they work with schools both short and long term. Sometimes this is just reoccurring field trips with certain grades at a school, or sometimes this is a long-term project with a specific campus, with like campus improvement as the goal, or sometimes the schools use the data that they've collected over and over again in their own projects, which is really awesome. So the skills and knowledge that we focus on really surround watershed health and conservation. We focus on teaching kids about water quality, riparian ecosystems, soil quality and erosion, and all the fun stuff that comes along with that. So usually when we work with schools in an outdoor classroom type setting, we do a couple stations. And those most common stations include water chemistry, like quality testing, aquatic macroinvertebrates, which is my personal favorite, and then data collection via technology such as mobile phones and drones. And Tian kind of touched on that. I'll be repeating some of what he said. So the first project that I got to work on with RiverSource was at the Walatoa Charter School in Jemez. It was really awesome. It's a super small class size, so it got to be, we were pretty intimate and got up close and personal with the kids. We took them outside and had them, as Tia mentioned, use Survey 123 to take a survey of their campus. In this particular school, long-term improvement is the goal. RiverSource has worked with them several times, and all of the data we collect every time is going towards the ultimate goal of helping improve their campus. So we started the day by introducing the kids to GIS and its importance in the modern scientific world, as well as how they would be using it themselves throughout these projects. We started them off by handing out phones we have for all the students to take surveys themselves, and we had pre-made surveys for them to kind of focus their attention towards things such as soil erosion, litter, unused spaces, and more, to kind of encourage the kids to look at what they wanted to change in their environment and to look critically at their surroundings. So here is a map showing the survey data from the kids. You can click on each point and kind of see what they noticed, the information they decided to collect. So all of them are a little different. But yeah, it was really fun to get them outside and see what they would notice on their campus. As Tia mentioned, there was a lot of erosion in certain areas that was important to focus on. Oops, how do I get out of this?
It's the top right, underneath where it says meet Rich Trader. You gotta move that black thing, I guess it's right there.
Thank you. Okay. Then we had the kids use our drones to capture aerial imagery of their campus. You saw some of that in Tion's presentation. And we also got drone footage of the nearby riverbed, where we also did some surveys, and this allowed the kids to see like a new perspective of their area and better visualize the connections between the conditions on their campus as well as those found in the riparian corridor. With this imagery, we were able to identify several areas on the campus where soil erosion is occurring and should be mediated because it could cause serious damage in the future. So this was just a short YouTube video that RiverSource put together to kind of show that, and this was filmed in part by students and in part by RiverSource staff, but the students filmed the majority of it, which is pretty awesome. I'm going to go ahead and skip through. We got to zoom in on some important areas on the campus where we wanted to focus further projects, and right here is where Tion pointed out some serious erosion going on that we later worked with staff to plan make a plan to fix in the future. So like I said, we had the students conduct another similar survey in the riparian area just below their campus, addressing like the water level, the presence of erosion in the riverbed, and the presence of vegetation as well. So once again, you can see some of their data that they collected. So plant cover, erosion, canopy, what kind of geology was present. So it's really helpful information to gather over time and to make predictions about the future and plan. We also had the students do a geomorphological survey on a cross-section of the stream bed to compare to a cross-section that RiverSource had taken with the same school a couple months before. And so here we helped the students use a laser level to take the necessary measurements, which was really awesome. And we lastly had them conduct a vegetation survey using the line intercept method to get a feel for the most dominant species in the area. We did this both in the riparian area and closer to their campus. So after collecting all this information, we were able to help the students analyze the data at a later date. So first I'll show the cross-section data. This was the cross-section taken in February, and then this is the cross-section we took in November. As you can see, there was definitely some water running through it in that time that caused the walls to get a little bit steeper, which was definitely leading to more erosion on the banks. And so it's really interesting and important to be able to watch this development and maybe make predictions about how it's going to impact the area in the future. This is the NDVI that Tion also showed, which we could use to show that there is pretty sparse vegetation on campus. In November, of course, a lot of it had already passed and was dead, but it is a pretty sparse campus in general, and that was something that the students and teachers wanted to address. And then our final step was getting the kids outside one more time to do some planting in some garden beds that hadn't gone to use in a while. So we provided a penstemon plant and Apache plume for planting, and then mulch and native grass seed to improve the soil quality. The kids had a lot of fun with this, getting outside and getting to play in the dirt and with all the fun tools. So it was really awesome to be able to help with that. And like I said, we used all of our findings from the various surveys and activities to help the teachers create a plan for future projects to continue with their students. So this included a plan to mitigate and prevent soil erosion, and then also to do additional planting and continued care of the garden plots, which immediately those projects garnered student volunteers as they were just talking them out before they were even planned. So it was really cool to see, watch the students' enthusiasm build as we kept coming back and working with them. So in our time with the school, we got to teach the kids new skills in tech and science, and as well as ways to be, other ways and new ways to be active stewards of the land. So the other school that we did the most work with this season was with NACA, the American Community Academy. With them, we went to their classroom twice and got to take them on a field trip to the Rio Grande. This was actually our first year, or RiverSource's first year working with this school, and we used a 3-phase program to introduce the students and their teachers to what we would like to focus on, which is watershed restoration and ecology, and the importance of both of those environmentally and culturally. So on our first day, we gave presentations to multiple classes detailing the definition of a watershed and identifying the Rio Grande watershed, and it's important to pretty much countless communities across New Mexico. We explained many environmental conditions that can impact watersheds and its overall health, including wildfire and flood events. So my job was presenting on the impacts of wildfire on watersheds, and we used the Las Conchas fire as an example. On the second day was the field trip day. We got the kids outside to the Rio Grande near the National Hispanic Cultural Center in Albuquerque, and this is where we set up our stations. Carlos took the lead on water chemistry, and then me and Tian got to lead the benthic macroinvertebrate station, which we then use to help the kids determine water quality and pollution. And to make it as engaging as possible, this time we were able to give the chance to the kids to collect some specimens themselves. So here's some of the kids in the water looking for some macroinvertebrates. And so what we would do with them is collect specimen beforehand to have in trays and have the kids try and select as many macroinvertebrates as they could find and put them in a tray of clear water, and then have them use sheets that we have to identify the invertebrates. And then the last step was having them collect their own, getting a little dirty. And then the last station we had was led by Rich, which involved data collection. We used the same mobile phones with Survey 123 to fill out information on the conditions of the riparian area, as well as a drone flight over the river. So here's the survey from the NACA kids. And here you can see some of the things we had them looking for: canopy, bank stability, land use, all of that kind of thing. And they also got to take pictures. So once again, very helpful for long-term monitoring, both for the school and for other projects. And then on the very last day with NACA, we were back in the classroom for some data analysis. Rich and Carlos led a quick presentation on the importance of data analysis and a how-to on Google Sheets. And then we all walked around the classroom and helped the students create graphs representing both the data they had collected on water chemistry and annual data previously collected by RiverSource with other schools, so we could give the students a visual representation of annual fluctuations. This was really fun, as a lot of the kids hadn't used these particular apps on Google yet, and so getting to show them how to play with these graphs and make them their own was really fun, and getting to show them how to make the data make sense and turn it from, a crazy sheet of numbers to something you can actually visualize was really interesting. And because of this experience, RiverSource already has plans to continue work with NACA in the spring and turn it into a regular event for the school. So yeah, in conclusion, it was just a really awesome experience. I didn't have a whole lot of prior teaching experience before having this internship with RiverSource, and getting to combine going outside with teaching kids new things was really awesome. And I feel much more comfortable in a teaching environment now. The most exciting thing was definitely getting them outside. My favorite moment was finding a little catfish while we were collecting the benthic macroinvertebrates, and that got the kids really excited to go in the water and look for more. No fish were harmed, don't worry. But yeah, it's just been absolutely invaluable to get to go outside and have these experiences, and watching, the kids' interests go from kind of disinterested and out there to absolutely fascinated in just a few minutes when you hit the right note is super amazing. So thank you so much, and thank you again to the YCC and RiverSource for making this internship possible.
Yeah, we're glad to have Elijah joining us from Peñasco. I was supposed to be presenting up there with him today, but he's such a trooper to be doing this on his own. I came down with COVID yesterday morning, and so I am isolating at home. So, but Elijah has been such a great uh, trooper working with us this year, overcoming some challenges like a broken collarbone from snowboarding, but still being able to accomplish much of the work that we asked of him as well. And yeah, so we're excited to be here, and he's going to present to us on some of the projects that we've been able to get our interns involved in at a place called Agua Piedras.
Hello, like Carlos was saying earlier, my name is Elijah. I'm located in Penasco High School. Today was a long day at a bunch of finals, but I'm finally here. I made it. Today I'll be talking about the Agua Perda barrier-free day use site. Starting in July, the River Source Watershed Academy performed a preliminary assessment of the Agua Perda day use site. At the request of the district ranger here at the El Camino Ranger Station, Mike Lujan, the Watershed Academy or YCC crew performed a preliminary assessment at the Agua Pirda day use area. The crew found that the day use area is getting impacted by floods and debris coming out of the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire and that burned the Upper Rio Pueblo watershed in 2020. Two large debris jams appeared, forcing water out of the main channel into the historic channel, which is leading to flooding in the Deus, particularly during the spring runoff and monsoon events. Flooding of the footbridges and trails is occurring that is limiting access to the area that provides easier access to the rivers for people with disabilities who are seeking to fish and travel on trails through their forests. As you can tell here, all these red dots along State Highway 518, you can tell these are each where not only me but also Rich and Carlos and other YCC members have taken survey points. Some of these are just about invasive plants, some talking about flooding, beaver dams, potential beaver deceivers to help with the flooding in some of these areas. We did do a lot of work, I will say, this summer about one making a plan on how to do it this next coming summer, but also doing a lot of work. Some of them are talking about how to prevent flooding on the banks, especially on the turns of the river. As you could tell on the very top one, we were thinking of rock veins to stop that flooding, especially because the water gets so high to where it's crashing into the bank. Here's a picture of where we might be putting in a beaver deceiver just because um, beavers are super important to the ecosystem and riparian areas, especially there. However, because of the channel and the flooding that happens in spring and monsoon seasons, they're causing the channel to move closer and closer to the other side of the bank, causing there more flooding in the Deus area. The preliminary mapping survey found that the Deus area is getting impacted by floods and debris coming from the HPCC. Two debris jams are being built further by beaver activity, appearing to be forcing water out of the main channel into the historic channel. Flooding of the footbridges and trails occurred, which is access or limiting access to areas that are provided for easier access for people with disabilities. In November of 2024, we completed a frugal geomorph survey by measuring 4 cross sections at the location above the debris jam. At the debris jam, there are 3 places below the debris jam to get an understanding of the shape of the channel. We also measured the longitude profile of the channel for 720 feet, including areas above and below the debris jam complex. The data will be now used to develop a conceptual design for either managing or removing the debris jam structures, improving the stream habit for fishing, increasing stream bank stability, and so those trails and footbridges in the day use area can be safely and effectively managed for those in that position that might be potentially abandoned. Here in this picture, you can see the red line is the longitude profile. So that's your whole stream for about 720 feet. The four blue lines are where we chose to do cross sections. This will give us the best idea of how the stream is flowing. And then also the cross sections are helping us see what does it look like when it is flooding. Because right now it's not really flooding because it's not it's a kind of a dry time. So we're not seeing too much flooding, but the cross sections and this longitude profile will help us see what it is like when the flooding seasons are happening. Here's a picture of the cross sections. So as you can tell from the cross sections, it is a flat area. So it gives us the differential in elevation. This will help us understand what it's like during flooding times. And it also give us what the toe of the slope is, our full bank, stuff like that, which will help us understand what flooding seasons might potentially harm or damage, and also gives us a way to understand how the stream is flooding. Here's the longitude profile. So as you can tell, the pink line is the bed of the stream as it goes down from where we started towards the bottom. We started at the top of the stream, and then you could tell right where that line is, right there in the middle. That's where the Beaver dam is. So that's where most of that flooding is getting carried off into the historic channel. So we would probably potentially put beaver deceivers in there. And then the blue line you can't really see very well is your bank full. And then these stars along the yellow line is your water surface level. So this is where like potentially the water can be flowing out during flooding seasons. Here's a couple of pictures we took during the summer when me and my other fellow crewmates went out. You can tell in this um, summer pictures that this is where we first found out that the historic channel is being pushed and pushed further into where the day use center is, or day use area is. Here you can see some erosion on these fish bed pads. I think they're super cool, especially for people with disabilities that can't fish. I think they're super cool. It would be a shame to get rid of something so cool. And also, there's ways around it to stop the erosion over time. Also, as you can tell in this very last photo, where the bridge, there's a huge debris jam just because of the large amount of flooding. At this bridge, there had been a pile of sticks that are getting pushed through the old historic channel all the way around, getting pushed towards the bridge. Um, Me and my crewmate Enrique at the time, we had pushed all of them out and made kind of a desagüe, a way to stop that erosion pushing and pushing against the bridge, as you can see in a later photo. Here's the photos we took this November. So we went back now in this fall internship and wanted to see, one, what it's like during fall, and two, get a idea of the cross sections and longitude of the river. Here you can still see that not as bad as the summer, but there is still a large flooding problem there. So we definitely need to talk or do something about that. And then as you can tell in the towards the end at the last photos, you could see how me and Enrique did deal with the debris jam that we were having problems with at the time. Um, I I think it held up really well. One thing you don't get to see in the pictures is how over time a tree had fallen onto it. So we had to pull that tree out of the way too. But you can tell that me and Enrique had lined up rocks so that when the water is pushing onto it, that those rocks and the desagüe can cut the water back into the little stream that goes through the bridge. Here's a picture of the paths and the debris, like I guess we call them slash piles. So because of like the flooding and then the maintenance, the lack of maintenance at the day use center for many years, there had been a lot of debris that had been falling onto the trail or around the trail. So me and my crew this summer went out and pulled all that off the trail initially, and then now we're making these big slash piles. So somebody, they can contract somebody to come and pull all these piles out. So it just one, it's more healthy for the environment, and two, it just looks a lot prettier. I just want to say a thank you to Rich and Carlos for being super understanding, and I want to thank everybody at the Forest Service for one, just giving me a place to be when I am working, and two, just really showing me what it's like to be part of the Forest Service.
Okay, did you want to share a little bit of your personal story map?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just pop that up real fast and you can keep rolling.
All right. So, intro to me. I already talked about who I am a little bit, but I'm a senior from Pinasco High School. I wanted to participate in this internship because of my deep connection to the land and water that shaped my upbringing in Pinasco, a small town in northern New Mexico. However, growing up, I witnessed firsthand that the profound impact of the environment has on the community, both in terms of physical resources and cultural identity. The rivers and the mountains were not just a part of the landscape, they were integral to our way of life, shaping the way we farmed, gathered, and celebrated. Things like the acequias that have sustained a huge part of the Pinasco community, even since my grandpa and his family have moved here. Here's a picture on the right-hand side. This is when we went out to a day to El Nagal, towards Taos Canyon. This picture was actually taken at US Hill. We had tried putting up new toilet paper handles. However, the concrete bit that we did have wasn't going through because there's like a steel beam in between both walls. Over time, I've come to realize that this connection is not just personal, but a way to give back to my community. I wanted to do this internship to better understand how modern conservation efforts can help sustain the ecosystems I grew up with. I believe that through this meaningful work, I can contribute to the protection of the land that was once and still so important to not only me, but everyone in my community, while also honoring our traditions and community that I belong to. This opportunity has provided me with the tools and knowledge to advocate for the land and water that continue to sustain my people. I'm driven from a passion to spread the large amount of ecological wisdom and conservation practices that are held within these deep Penasco roots to ensure that future generations can maintain their deep connection with the land. One thing I do really want to touch on is I think Penasco is a beautiful community, and I feel like there's a lot of smart people here. I just like I feel like when people from Penasco are given an opportunity to speak about what they know, I feel like it's super important. Some things I did with the Watershed Academy was first I was shown the ins and out of the office. I was getting to meet new people, some people I haven't met before, like a lot of the fire crew I'd never met. A lot of people I did know, like the forestry techs, like Juan, Cordell, Scott, and Landon, and Ganga. New faces like I had never really met Miles before part of the rec crew. Many hazard tree and campsite cleanups later, we as a group set out on our first of three big projects of days of work. This first being the biggest, we left to Agua Pirida to work on cross sections like I was talking earlier. Here's a picture of me fishing that I went out in the summer with some of the crewmates that I met this summer. I'm still really close with them. Even through very, very many trials and tribulations, like breaking my collarbone, I can say this internship has taught me a large amount. I would like to thank Rich and Carlos for not only being super understanding, but also setting a great example and helping me through this internship. I really couldn't have done it without you guys. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Elijah.